The massive crystal chamber buzzed with worried voices. Chairman Velnara's ancient form glowed softly as she called the emergency meeting to order. Her crystalline body had witnessed thousands of galactic conflicts over the centuries, but nothing quite like this. "We must discuss the humans," she announced, her voice echoing through the vast space. Representatives from 47 species filled the chamber, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Ambassador Crix from the Talani Federation stood first. His blue skin flickered with nervous patterns. "Chairman, we have serious concerns about these new members. Their behavior in conflicts is unusual." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The humans had joined the Galaxy Council only 2 years ago, but their actions were already causing problems. "Please explain," Chairman Velnara said. Crix activated a holographic display. 3 months ago, pirates attacked a human cargo ship near the Outer Rim. Standard protocol would be to file complaints, negotiate for prisoner exchanges, maybe conduct limited raids for several months until both sides reach agreement. The display showed a small human vessel being attacked by 6 pirate ships. The humans sent 1 destroyer, Crix continued. Within 4 hours, the entire pirate base was destroyed. Not damaged, destroyed. The pirates surrendered completely or fled the sector entirely. General Zektar of the Vorth Empire laughed, his scales rattling. "Perhaps the pirates were weak. My people have fought the Keth for 200 years. It builds character and honor." "That brings up another issue," said Ambassador Yila from the Peaceful Confederation. Her tentacles waved anxiously. "The humans offered to help end the Vorth-Keth conflict. When we explained it was a traditional war with proper seasons and honor codes, they looked confused. One human officer asked why we didn't just finish it properly, instead of letting it drag on. One human officer. More uncomfortable murmurs filled the chamber. The Vorth-Keth War was a perfect example of civilized conflict. Both sides fought bravely during war seasons, exchanged prisoners politely, and respected each other's civilian populations. It was how proper species conducted themselves. Chairman Velnara called up another display. "We have received 17 similar reports. Border disputes that should take years to resolve are ended by humans in days. They do not seem to understand the concept of limited warfare." Admiral Renth of the Galactic Defense Force adjusted his mechanical arm. "They have something they call total war. When humans fight, they aim to completely eliminate their enemy's ability to continue fighting. Forever. Forever." The chamber fell silent. Such concepts were almost unthinkable to most species. "Surely you exaggerate," said Diplomat Hess from the trade union. "No species is that extreme in their approach to conflict." Admiral Renth shook his metallic head. "I have reviewed their historical records. Humans have fought wars lasting decades where entire populations were involved. They learned to end conflicts completely rather than allow them to continue. To them, an enemy that can still fight is a problem not yet solved." Ambassador Crix pulled up more files. "Look at this incident from last month. The Raider clans captured a human research station. Standard procedure would be demands, negotiations, limited rescue attempts over several months. The humans assembled a strike force and recovered their people within 18 hours. They also destroyed every Raider ship in the system and left warning beacons telling other Raiders to stay away permanently." "But what about honor?" demanded General Zektar. "What about giving enemies a chance to prove themselves in combat? Where is the sport in such overwhelming response? The humans apparently see no honor in prolonged conflict." Admiral Renth replied. "They view war as a failure of diplomacy that must be corrected as quickly as possible. Their military doctrine focuses on swift, decisive action to prevent further bloodshed." 1. Admiral Renth. Chairman Velnara's glow dimmed with concern. "This could upset the balance we have maintained for millennia. Many of our member species rely on traditional conflict resolution. Limited warfare serves important social and political functions. There's more, Ambassador Crick said quietly. Human military officers have been asking questions about ongoing conflicts throughout the galaxy. They seem genuinely confused why the Sector 7 border war has continued for 50 years. Or why the mining rights dispute has lasted 3 decades. They keep using phrases like, "just end it," and "solve the problem permanently." The chamber erupted in worried conversation. These long-running conflicts were institutions. They provided opportunities for young warriors to prove themselves, created diplomatic careers, and maintained stable relationships between species. The idea of simply ending them was revolutionary and frightening. "What do we know about human military capabilities?" asked Chairman Velnara. Admiral Renth consulted his files. "Their technology is not superior to ours, but their tactical approaches are unlike anything we have seen. They coordinate multiple types of forces simultaneously, strike at infrastructure rather than just military units, and always plan for complete victory rather than temporary advantage. We must speak with them directly," decided Chairman Velnara. "Send a formal request to Ambassador Lee Haejin. We need to understand human military philosophy before it disrupts galactic stability." General Zektar's scales darkened with anger. "Perhaps these humans need to learn how real warfare is conducted. My people have maintained honorable traditions for thousands of years." "That may not be wise," Admiral Renth warned. "Human military history suggests they do not respond to challenges the way you might expect." Chairman Velnara raised a crystalline hand for silence. "We will approach this diplomatically first. But we must understand what we are dealing with. If humans truly cannot conduct limited warfare, they may be too dangerous for galactic society." The meeting ended with an uneasy agreement. Ambassador Lee Haejin would be formally requested to explain human military doctrine to the Council. Many representatives left the chamber wondering if inviting humans to join their peaceful galaxy had been a terrible mistake. In her private quarters later, Chairman Velnara reviewed the human files again. Their history showed incredible violence, but also remarkable achievements in peace. The question was whether their approach to conflict would bring stability or chaos to the galaxy. She activated a communication link to the human embassy. It was time to get answers directly from the source. Ambassador Lee Haejin stood calmly before the Galaxy Council, her hands clasped behind her back. The formal chamber felt tense as dozens of alien representatives watched her with curious and worried expressions. "Thank you for this opportunity to clarify human military doctrine," she began, her voice steady. "I understand there has been confusion about our approach to conflict resolution." Chairman Velnara's crystalline form pulsed softly. "Indeed, Ambassador Lee. Your species' methods seem unusually final." Lee nodded. "To understand our approach, you must know our history. Humans fought wars that lasted generations. We had a conflict called the 100 Years' War that actually lasted 116 years. Another called World War I was supposed to be the war to end all wars, but it led directly to an even worse conflict 20 years later." She activated a small holographic display. "We learned that incomplete victories create future problems. When conflicts are not fully resolved, they return stronger and more deadly. This taught us that the most merciful approach is often the most decisive one." General Zektar shifted uncomfortably. "But what about the honor of combat? The testing of warriors? The bonds formed through shared struggle?" "With respect, General, we see little honor in prolonged suffering," Lee replied. "You mentioned your war with the Keth. 200 years of conflict means 8 generations have grown up knowing nothing but war. How many young warriors have died for the honor of continuing something their great-grandparents started?" The chamber fell silent. This was not how most species thought about their traditional conflicts. Ambassador Crix spoke up. "But limited warfare serves important functions. It prevents larger conflicts, provides outlets for aggression, and maintains political balance." "Does it?" Lee asked. "Or does it simply create permanent instability?" Our studies suggest that quick, decisive action actually prevents larger wars. When threats are eliminated completely, other potential aggressors think twice before starting conflicts. She brought up another display showing recent human interventions. 3 months ago, pirates attacked our cargo ship. We could have engaged in months of raids and counter-raids, as is apparently customary. Instead, we eliminated the pirate base entirely. Result: piracy in that sector dropped by 90%. Other criminal organizations decided to operate elsewhere. Admiral Renth leaned forward. But such overwhelming response seems excessive for minor threats. Is it? Lee challenged. How many innocent traders died during the months-long pirate conflicts you consider normal? How much economic damage occurred? How many resources were wasted on prolonged military operations? Our approach saved lives and money while solving the problem permanently. She gestured to Captain Park Minho, who had been standing quietly nearby. He stepped forward with military precision. Captain Park leads our Special Operations Division, Lee explained. Perhaps he can demonstrate our tactical thinking. Park activated a holographic tactical display showing the Vorthketh conflict zone. With your permission, I'll show how human doctrine would address this situation. The display lit up with military positions, supply lines, and strategic assets. Park's hands moved quickly, highlighting targets and force movements. Traditional approach. Engage enemy forces in honorable combat. Exchange prisoners. Conduct seasonal campaigns, Park said, his voice matter-of-fact. Estimated time to resolution. Indefinite. Possibly generations. He switched to a different tactical view. Human approach. Simultaneous strikes on command infrastructure, supply networks, and strategic assets. Disable enemies' ability to wage war while preserving civilian populations. Estimated time to resolution: 2 weeks. The alien representatives stared at the display in shock. Park had identified hundreds of targets and coordinated dozens of strike forces in a matter of minutes. The entire Vorthketh war zone was mapped out with surgical precision. You would attack non-combatant infrastructure? General Zektar demanded, his scales flushing angry red. Military infrastructure only, Park corrected. Communications. Logistics. Command centers. We disable the enemy's ability to coordinate and supply their forces. Without these capabilities, organized resistance becomes impossible. Surrender becomes the logical choice. But that eliminates any chance for honorable single combat or warrior testing, protested Ambassador Yila. Yes, Park agreed simply. War is not a test or sport to us. It is a problem that needs solving. Lee stepped forward again. I understand this seems foreign to you. Most of your species evolved on worlds where resources were abundant and populations stable. Conflict could be ritualized because survival was not usually at stake. She brought up Earth's history. Humans evolved on a world where resources were limited and survival uncertain. Every conflict was potentially existential. We learned that half measures in warfare often lead to complete disaster. But surely you see the value in traditional approaches? Asked Diplomat Hess. The political relationships, the diplomatic opportunities, the cultural exchanges that occur during extended conflicts? We see the value in peace, Lee replied firmly. True peace, not the managed warfare you call normal. When conflicts end completely, former enemies can become true allies. When they continue indefinitely, hatred passes from generation to generation. Chairman Velnara's glow brightened with interest. You suggest that your approach creates more lasting peace? Historical evidence supports this, Lee confirmed. When humans fought the war called World War II, we demanded unconditional surrender from our enemies. Afterward, those same enemies became our closest allies. Complete victory allowed complete reconciliation. She paused, looking around the chamber. I know our methods seem extreme, but ask yourselves, how many of your ongoing conflicts could have been resolved decades ago with decisive action? How many lives could have been saved? How much progress could have been made if resources weren't constantly devoted to managing perpetual wars? The chamber buzzed with uncomfortable conversation. These were questions most species had never seriously considered. Admiral Renth spoke carefully. Your tactical capabilities are impressive, but they could destabilize our entire galactic order. Many of our political and economic systems depend on managed conflicts. Then perhaps those systems need examining, Lee said gently. Humanity offers friendship and cooperation, but we will not adopt military doctrines that we know lead to unnecessary death and suffering. If that means we must remain somewhat apart from galactic military traditions, we accept that responsibility. The meeting ended with more questions than answers, but the Council now understood something crucial. Humans viewed war fundamentally differently than any other known species. Whether this made them valuable allies or dangerous threats remained to be seen. General Zektar stood in the ornate war chamber of his flagship, surrounded by traditional Vorth military banners. His scales gleamed with ceremonial paint as he prepared for what would surely be a glorious test of strength against these upstart humans. They think their brutal methods make them strong, he told his assembled commanders. Today we teach them the honor of true warfare. The Vorth Empire had maintained military traditions for thousands of years. War was not mere destruction, but an art form. Battles had seasons, rules, and proper ceremonies. Warriors proved themselves through skill and courage, not through overwhelming force. General, our intelligence suggests humans may not respond as expected, warned Commander Thek, his youngest officer. Their previous actions indicate unusual tactical approaches. Zektar's laugh rumbled through the chamber. Let them try their crude methods against Vorth military tradition. We have fought the Keth for 2 centuries and learned every lesson of honorable combat. He activated the ceremonial communication array, preparing to issue the formal challenge. This was how civilized species conducted warfare. Attention, human colony of New Busan, Zektar announced, his voice carrying the weight of ancient ritual. I am General Zektar of the Vorth Empire, heir to 10,000 years of military honor. Your species has insulted the galaxy with your barbaric approach to conflict. The transmission continued with formal declarations, listing grievances and offering the humans opportunities for honorable surrender or single combat. It was a beautiful ceremony, refined over centuries of proper warfare. I challenge your finest warriors to meet mine in glorious battle, Zektar concluded. We shall engage in proper conflict for no less than 6 months, with seasonal breaks for prisoner exchanges and supply replenishment. May the worthiest warriors claim victory. The response came within an hour, but not from who Zektar expected. Admiral Jin Soyeon appeared on the communication screen, her expression calm and professional. Behind her, Zektar could see a human command bridge filled with officers working quietly at their stations. General Zektar, I am Admiral Jin Soyeon, of the Human Defense Force. I have received your declaration of hostilities against our colony. Excellent, Zektar replied, pleased that the humans were following proper protocol. I assume you wish to discuss the terms of our honorable conflict? Perhaps arrange the first ceremonial battles? Admiral Jin looked confused. General, I'm afraid there may be a misunderstanding. We don't engage in ceremonial conflicts. If you have grievances against our colony, I suggest diplomatic resolution through the Galaxy Council. Zektar's scales darkened with disappointment. You refuse honorable combat? This confirms what we suspected about human cowardice. Not cowardice, General. We simply prefer to solve problems through peaceful means when possible. Admiral Jin's voice remained steady. However, if you insist on attacking our colony, we will defend it. Of course you will defend, Zektar agreed. That is the point of honorable warfare. We shall begin with preliminary skirmishes next week. allowing time for proper preparation. Admiral Jin was quiet for a long moment. "General, I need to be very clear about something. If you attack our colony, we will not engage in months of ceremonial battles. We will end the threat to our people as quickly and efficiently as possible." "You speak of efficiency in warfare like merchants discussing trade," Zektar snorted. "Where is the honor in quick victory? Where is the test of courage and skill?" "There is no honor in prolonged suffering," Admiral Jin replied. "If you proceed with this attack, you will force us to respond with our full military doctrine. I strongly advise reconsidering." Zektar terminated the communication, disgusted by human weakness. They clearly did not understand the nobility of proper warfare. Within days, Vorth forces arrived at New Busan, ready for glorious battle. Zektar had brought his finest ships and most experienced warriors. The human colony was small and agricultural, perfect for a traditional siege that would test both sides properly. "Begin the ceremonial bombardment," Zektar ordered. "Target their military installations only, of course. We must give them opportunity for proper response." The first phase of traditional warfare began. Vorth ships fired warning shots and targeted non-essential military structures. This would continue for weeks, allowing humans to respond with their own raids, while both sides built up forces for the real battles. But something was wrong. Instead of responding with traditional counter-raids, the humans simply evacuated civilian populations and reinforced their defenses. Their few ships remained in defensive positions, refusing to engage in proper skirmishes. "Why don't they attack our supply ships?" complained Commander Thek. "How can we have honorable conflict if they won't participate correctly?" Zektar was beginning to worry. The humans weren't following any recognized patterns of warfare. They seemed to be waiting for something. 3 days into what should have been a glorious extended campaign, Admiral Jin contacted Zektar again. "General, this is your final warning. Withdraw your forces immediately, or we will consider this an act of war, requiring full military response." "This already is war, Admiral," Zektar replied, confused by the obvious statement. "We have been conducting proper warfare for 3 days." Zektar: "No, General. What you have been doing is harassment. When humans go to war, it looks very different." Admiral Jin's expression had turned cold. "You have attacked our territory and threatened our people. We have given you every opportunity to reconsider. You threaten us with your crude methods?" Zektar laughed. "We are prepared for whatever brutality you can manage." "I hope not, General. Because, as of this moment, you are at war with humanity." The transmission ended, and Zektar felt the first stirrings of unease. Something in the human admiral's voice suggested this was not going according to any plan he understood. Meanwhile, in a secure location, Captain Park Minho was giving final briefings to his strike teams. The time for warnings had ended. The humans had tried diplomacy, they had given clear warnings, and they had offered peaceful solutions. Now it was time to solve the problem permanently. "Remember," Park told his assembled officers, "this is not a traditional engagement. We end this completely. All military assets, all command infrastructure, all supply networks. When we're finished, the Vorth Empire will have no ability to threaten anyone until they rebuild from scratch." The human response was about to begin, and General Zektar had no idea what was coming. The Galaxy Council's observation deck was crowded with representatives from dozens of species, all watching the Vorth-human conflict unfold. They expected to witness months of traditional warfare, with proper ceremonies and honorable exchanges. They were about to learn how wrong they were. General Zektar stood on his flagship's bridge, confident in his superior numbers and traditional tactics. His fleet outnumbered the human defenders 3-1, and his warriors had centuries of combat experience. "Begin the morning assault," he ordered his fleet commanders. "Target their defensive positions. Give them opportunity to respond with honor." Before his ships could fire, alarms began sounding throughout the Vorth fleet. "General," called his sensor officer, confusion clear in his voice, I'm detecting multiple human ships approaching from everywhere. Impossible, Zektar replied. We have complete sensor coverage of this system. But the impossible was happening. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids, from the shadow of the system's gas giant, and from empty space where advanced stealth technology had hidden them perfectly. They've been positioning forces for days, Admiral Renth observed from the council chamber, watching the tactical displays with growing amazement. While General Zektar was conducting ceremonial bombardments, the humans were surrounding his entire fleet. Captain Park Minho's voice came across all Vorth communication channels simultaneously. Attention Vorth forces. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender immediately, or we will disable your ships. Zektar laughed at the human arrogance. Threaten us? We outnumber you 3-1. Numbers don't matter when tactics are superior, Park replied calmly. Never, Zektar declared. Vorth warriors do not yield to barbarians. All ships, attack formation. Show these humans how real warriors fight. What happened next shocked every observer in the Galaxy Council. The humans didn't engage in ship-to-ship combat as expected. Instead, they struck with precision that seemed impossible. Each human vessel targeted specific systems on multiple Vorth ships simultaneously. Within minutes, every Vorth ship found their weapons disabled, their engines offline, and their communication systems jammed. They were completely helpless, but completely intact. How did they coordinate that? Ambassador Crix whispered, watching the tactical display in disbelief. They hit dozens of targets simultaneously across the entire fleet. Captain Park's teams had already moved to the next phase. Human boarding parties appeared on every major Vorth vessel at the same time, using transport technology the Council had never seen before. But they weren't there to fight. Attention Vorth crew members, came announcements in perfect Vorth language. Remain at your stations. Do not attempt to resist. You will not be harmed if you comply with instructions. Within the hour, every Vorth ship was under human control. But not a single Vorth warrior had been killed. They had been efficiently and completely neutralized without traditional combat. General Zektar found himself facing Captain Park in his own command center, surrounded by human soldiers who had appeared as if from nowhere. This is not how warfare is conducted, Zektar protested. Where is the honor? Where is the test of courage? Your courage was never in question, General, Park replied respectfully. But your judgment was. You attacked our colony without justification and refused peaceful resolution. But we followed all proper protocols, Zektar said, genuinely confused. Formal declaration, ceremonial combat, opportunity for honorable surrender. Your protocols assume your enemy wants to participate in extended conflict, Park explained. Humans prefer to end threats quickly and completely. From the Galaxy Council chamber, the observers watched in stunned silence as human forces began the next phase of their operation. They're not stopping with the fleet, Admiral Renth noted with growing alarm. They're targeting Vorth military infrastructure throughout the entire sector. Human strike teams had simultaneously appeared at every major Vorth military base within 50 light-years. Communication centers, supply depots, training facilities, and command posts were all being systematically disabled. They planned this entire operation while General Zektar was conducting his ceremonial attacks. Chairman Velnara observed, her crystalline form pulsing with fascination and concern. They used his traditional approach as cover for complete strategic preparation. The scope of the human operation was breathtaking. While maintaining defensive positions around their colony, they had somehow positioned forces throughout Vorth space. Every major military asset was being neutralized simultaneously. But again, casualties were minimal. Human forces were disabling equipment and infrastructure, not destroying lives. Attention, Vorth Empire leadership. Admiral Jin's voice broadcast across all Vorth communication networks. Your military capacity has been completely disabled. You have no ships, no supplies, no communication networks, and no command structure capable of continuing hostilities. We offer complete amnesty for all personnel and full restoration of civilian infrastructure in exchange for immediate cessation of all military action against human territories. You have 1 hour to respond. The council chamber erupted in urgent discussion. They've essentially conquered the entire Vorth military apparatus in less than 6 hours, Ambassador Crick said, his blue skin flickering rapidly with stress patterns. Without destroying it, added Diplomat Hess. They could have eliminated everything, but they chose precise disabling instead. This demonstrates restraint, Chairman Velnara noted. They have overwhelming capability, but use it surgically. General Zektar sat in his disabled command chair, trying to understand what had happened. His glorious traditional warfare had become impossible. Every ship was dead in space, every base was occupied, every communication system was controlled by humans. How many of our warriors died? He asked Captain Park. 17 injured, none killed, Park reported. We specifically avoided lethal force unless absolutely necessary for self-defense. Zektar stared at him in disbelief. You conquered our entire military without killing our warriors? Killing your people would not solve the problem, Park explained. Dead warriors become martyrs and inspire revenge. Defeated but living warriors can learn from their experience and make better choices. Within the hour, the Vorth Empire formally surrendered. They had no choice. Their entire military capability had been eliminated so completely that continued resistance was impossible. But as the Council watched the aftermath, they realized something remarkable. The humans immediately began restoring civilian infrastructure and releasing captured personnel. They kept only enough control to ensure compliance with surrender terms. They're not occupying Vorth territory, Ambassador Yila observed. They're withdrawing as soon as the threat is neutralized. Because occupation would create new problems, Ambassador Lee explained to the Council. Our goal was never conquest. It was ending the threat to our people. The demonstration was complete. The Galaxy Council had witnessed human military doctrine in action. It was efficient, overwhelming, and surprisingly merciful. But it was also completely unlike anything they had ever seen. The question now was what this meant for the future of galactic civilization. The Emergency Galaxy Council session was the largest gathering in the Chamber's history. Representatives from every member species had come to witness the debate that would determine humanity's place in galactic civilization. Chairman Velnara's crystalline form pulsed with ancient wisdom as she addressed the assembly. We have all observed the human response to General Zektar's challenge. Now we must decide what this means for our galactic community. The chamber buzzed with nervous conversation. The complete neutralization of Vorth military forces in 6 hours had shaken every species to their core. Ambassador Crick stood first, his blue skin showing agitated patterns. These humans are too dangerous to remain unrestricted. Their military capabilities could destabilize our entire galactic order. I propose immediate limitations on human military actions. Murmurs of agreement rippled through several delegations. The traditional warfare that had maintained galactic balance for millennia seemed primitive compared to human efficiency. I disagree, said Admiral Renth, his mechanical components gleaming under the chamber lights. The humans showed remarkable restraint. They could have destroyed the entire Vorth Empire but chose minimal casualties instead. General Zektar himself had requested permission to address the council. He entered the chamber with obvious difficulty, his proud warrior bearing now subdued by recent experience. Honored delegates, he began, his voice carrying none of its former arrogance. I attacked the humans, expecting traditional warfare. I received something entirely different. He paused, choosing his words carefully. They defeated my forces so completely that resistance became impossible. But they did not humiliate us, enslave us, or destroy our people. They eliminated the threat I represented, then offered peace. The question, said Diplomat Hess, is whether such overwhelming military doctrine can coexist with our traditional approaches to conflict resolution. Ambassador Lee Haejin rose to address the council one final time. Honored Chairman, respected delegates, I understand your concerns. Human military doctrine seems extreme because we learned different lessons from our history. She activated a holographic display showing various ongoing galactic conflicts. You have 17 major conflicts currently consuming resources and lives across the galaxy. The Sector 7 border war has lasted 50 years. The mining rights dispute has continued for 3 decades. The Kethvorth conflict has endured for 2 centuries. The display showed casualty figures, economic costs, and social disruption from these prolonged conflicts. The numbers were staggering when accumulated over decades. Our question is simple, Lee continued. How many lives could have been saved if these conflicts had been resolved decisively years ago? How much progress could have been made if resources weren't constantly devoted to managing perpetual wars? Ambassador Yila's tentacles waved anxiously. But you're suggesting we abandon traditions that have maintained stability for millennia. I'm suggesting that managed conflict isn't stability, Lee replied firmly. It's institutionalized violence. True stability comes when conflicts are resolved permanently, allowing former enemies to become partners in progress. She gestured to Captain Park Minho, who stepped forward with several data tablets. We've analyzed the ongoing conflicts in your galaxy, Park announced. With Council permission, humanity could end all 17 major disputes within 6 months. Casualties would be minimal compared to allowing them to continue indefinitely. The chamber fell into shocked silence. The idea of ending all major galactic conflicts in months, rather than centuries, was revolutionary. You're offering to solve our wars? Asked Chairman Velnara, her glow brightening with interest. We're offering to solve problems, Lee corrected. Wars are just one type of problem. Sometimes the solution is diplomatic, sometimes economic, sometimes technological. When military force is necessary, we apply it decisively and then immediately turn to rebuilding. What would you want in return? Demanded Ambassador Crix, suspicion clear in his voice patterns. Peace, Lee replied simply. We want to build trade relationships, share technology, and explore the galaxy without constantly worrying about which conflict might threaten our people next. General Zektar spoke again. I have seen human capabilities firsthand. They could have destroyed my empire entirely. Instead, they've offered to help us rebuild our military as a defense force rather than an aggressive threat. This is not the action of conquerors. Chairman Velnara called for formal debate. For hours, delegates argued the implications of accepting human military doctrine versus trying to restrict it. Some species feared losing their traditional approaches to conflict. Others were excited by the possibility of finally ending disputes that had consumed generations. A few worried that humans might eventually turn their overwhelming capabilities against the Council itself. Finally, an old voice spoke from the back of the chamber. Ancient diplomat Saren had witnessed more galactic history than anyone alive. I have seen 1,000 traditional wars, she said, her voice carrying the weight of centuries. I have watched young warriors die for causes their ancestors started. I have seen entire species trapped in cycles of violence that serve no purpose except perpetuating themselves. She moved slowly toward the center of the chamber. These humans offer something we have never tried. The possibility of true peace through strength, used wisely. Perhaps it is time to learn new ways. The final vote was closer than expected. But humanity was officially accepted as a full member of the Galaxy Council, with unrestricted military autonomy. More importantly, the Council voted to accept human assistance in resolving ongoing conflicts. Within the year, remarkable changes swept across the galaxy. The Sector 7 border war ended when human negotiators offered both sides better alternatives than continuing to fight. The mining rights dispute was resolved through human-mediated technology sharing that made the disputed resources irrelevant. Most surprisingly, The ancient Keth-Vorth conflict ended not through military intervention, but through a human proposal that turned former enemies into trading partners. General Zektar found himself working with former Keth adversaries on joint infrastructure projects. 200 years of war, he reflected to Captain Park during a diplomatic visit. And the solution was cooperation, not conquest. Sometimes the best victory is helping your enemy discover they don't need to be your enemy anymore, Park replied. As the changes spread throughout the galaxy, a new understanding emerged. Humans didn't fight wars because they loved violence. They fought them because they loved peace enough to end conflicts permanently, rather than manage them indefinitely. The Galaxy Council had learned something valuable. Sometimes the most merciful approach is the most decisive one. And sometimes, the species that seems most warlike is actually the most committed to lasting peace. Chairman Velnara's final report noted that galactic military spending had dropped by 60% within 2 years, while trade and scientific cooperation had increased dramatically. The human approach to conflict resolution had indeed brought a new kind of stability to the stars. The galaxy had learned to solve problems rather than simply manage them. And it had learned this lesson from the species that understood war well enough to end it properly.